life is almost like kind of like a prison in a way where we could choose to be in a cell, which is our thoughts, our negativity, our bad emotions, but the key and the door is there. And
Oh,
at any point, freedom from suffering is
yeah.
available to us when we recognize that we are in this cell, which is our thoughts and our emotions, but we're
Mm,
always able to tap out of it. And same with social media. We just have to close our phones and
mhm,
look around. And I think it's hard, especially when you're in the moment. And it's
mm.
same with negative emotions. When your nervous system is so stirred up, it's so easy to just stay there. But once we recognize what it is that is happening and just like letting go, taking a deep breath, I think that is like the most healing thing we can do.
What's your experience using social media and when did you begin and were there any parameters that your parents or when did it really get to be something that you leaned into?
Well, I started using social media when I was around 12 years old, and I started using it kind of when it became quite popular among people my age, starting with Instagram and Facebook. And my parents didn't really regulate it because it was brand new for them as well. And they didn't realize the kind of harm that a child can experience through social media. And I think that social media has brought me a lot of connection, having moved around the world and lived in many different cities and met a lot of different people. Social media has been a great way for me to stay connected with them and for me to have people in my life that normally would not stay in my life.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, there are a lot of harms for me personally and for the people around me because social media is a way for us to show the world our best selves and our best lives. And it's not a complete image of
Mm,
someone's entire being and their existence. And I think that human nature makes us compare us to one another, to our peers,
mhm.
and having that kind of portal into someone else's best life can make that kind of comparison extremely toxic and hurtful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you've covered so many important points. As a mom too, my kids, um, social media came on and I didn't know the harm it would cause. And then Snapchat came. But I think you also make a good point about it keeps people connected, especially when you travel internationally and you want to know where your family and friends are. And I know there's settings to adjust just for friends, just for family, and so on and so forth. But um, would you say a little bit more about how, when you look at the best life, let's say, of your friends or of someone else that you don't know, and you're like, wow, especially as your brain is developing, some studies say until 26, 27 now. How do you think that impacted your mental health?
Having social media as my brain has been developing, I think one of the big things is like I'm a naturally curious person, and I think a lot of people are too. And
Mm,
there's this phenomenon where people go on each other's Instagram or other kind of social media platforms to glimpse into someone's life. And
hmm.
a lot of the times, they're people we don't know very well, people that we might be acquaintances of or just mutuals. And I think growing up, I used to do that a lot, just out of curiosity, wondering what these people that my friends are friends with or whatnot are doing with their lives. And I think that kind of the ability to be able to look into someone's life in that
Hmm.
way, a very curated image of someone's life that you don't know, um, it affected me because sometimes, I wanted to almost live that kind of life, especially if they were like famous or really successful.
You're really hitting on the core issue, and thank you for being vulnerable. I think vulnerability is kind of what Instagram had been lacking, and you have to be careful as someone in the mental health field that when you do share vulnerability, that it's not taken out of context. And so, you can show there's a lot of like an all or nothing mentality, as Bridget was describing on our interview yesterday. So you have extremes, and the algorithms of Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat have picked up on the extremes getting more views, right? And so where's that pendulum in the middle to say, yeah, I've had a really crappy day. In fact, so much so that I just wanted to run to my room, throw the covers over my head, binge on chips or watch a show and not really being able to share that piece. But if you do, making sure that the viewer doesn't take it to an extreme, that that's an okay way to cope. It can be, but understanding that was just a day in 7 days of a week and giving yourself grace to go in and maybe reset, recharge your nervous system. Sometimes isolation and what I like to say is solitude is actually healthier than running away just to get away from everything. You're going to reset your nervous system so you can then come back in to engage in relationships or life. So I think there's a delicate balance to the all or nothing mentality and finding that middle balance. Let me ask you this then. I think that was so honest of you. I think we all like to peer into each other's maybe mutuals' lives and go, "Ooh, that looks so magical." And they always say the grass is greener on the other side, but it's actually greener where you water it. So, would you walk me through when you learned how to water your own grass and start to put more attention on you versus what other people are doing?
I think for me, the way that I was able to build a healthy relationship with social media and not focus on other people's lives, especially people that I'm not close to. Because with a friend, you know that the curated image that they portray on social media isn't the truth because you're able to communicate with them, but not with strangers. And I think that for me, an important thing is to step away, and when it gets too chaotic, my thoughts and my emotions from being on social media, I just have to get off of it. And it is a choice that we make.
Yeah.
And it is, I feel like a good analogy for me is um, like the metaphor that life is almost like kind of like a prison in a way where we could choose to be in a cell, which is our thoughts, our negativity, our bad emotions, but the key and the door is there. And
No.
at any point, freedom from suffering is
Yeah.
available to us when we recognize that we are in this cell, which is our thoughts and our emotions, but we're always
Mm.
able to tap out of it. And same with social media. We just have to close our phones and
Mhm.
look around. And I think it's hard, especially when you're in the moment. And it's
Mm.
same with negative emotions. When your nervous system is so stirred up, it's so easy to just stay there. But once we recognize what it is that is happening and just like letting go, taking a deep breath, I think that is like the most healing thing we can do. And it's all about doing it over and over and again and breaking that
Yeah.
spell of like, oh my God, I'm stuck. I'm in this tornado of negativity.
How did you first learn that? Because that's the key right there, to pick up the key and know that you have the key, and then when you choose to use it, but even being aware that you have a way out, because we are a prisoner of our own mind. In the recovery rooms, they say you're as sick as your secrets. I actually don't actually like that saying. I like to say we're a victim of our secrets, which is very much what you're talking about. We don't realize we're in a prison. Like sometimes it's just you don't think you have a choice. How did you realize you had a choice? That's really profound for someone of your age.
Oh, thank you. I think for me, my spiritual journey started during COVID, and obviously there were lockdowns and so many restrictions, and it was a really difficult time for a lot of people, but also a time of creation and self-exploration. And I think for me, I can't really pinpoint a specific moment, but I just realized that all the my entire existence is just shaped by my perspective and my thoughts and the way that I frame the world. But that isn't the truth and it isn't objective, and that there is freedom from that negativity. And even if it's positive, that kind of like set framework that we have and this belief that we have that like this is the way life is, this is the way I am. And I've been able to step out of it and kind of realize that there isn't this idea of like myself that I have to really stick to and that I'm ever changing and
Mm.
I'm growing all the time, and just the ability to let things change. And
Mm.
to me, COVID
Say that
allowed
again. That was really profound. The ability
that.
to
Thank
what?
you. To let things change and to go with the flow.
Yes.
And there's a lot of philosophies that one can study. And
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, most major religions and and spiritual philosophies, they have like a similar message. And it's just all about whichever way it's put, like whichever philosophy or religion has the kind of messaging that you need. But the truth is that I do think freedom is available to every person once they realize that
Hmm.
we are in this cell that is our thoughts.
That's so true and so profound. And I really like what you're saying about freedom of choice. How did maybe your friends, and then we'll come to an end soon, how did you and your friends, or did you notice your friends recognizing? So during COVID, I heard a little bit more time with self, so you could pay attention to your habits and your behaviors. You were left with yourself, right? And sometimes, like having that solitude, COVID was a curse and a blessing for many people. And I say that very mindfully of all the people that were lost during COVID. So that's not lost on me. That being said, there are so many people that have come and said, I didn't realize the patterns that my child was having on social media. I didn't realize how much time they were spending because their parents are home from work. Or did you notice with your friends, did you start comparing, like, I don't want to be on this so much, or I don't like being fed this feed, the algorithm's feeding me? Did that start to have like an awakening with you and your friends?
I think, unfortunately, during COVID, we were so sucked into the algorithm and we were so sucked into
Ah.
the virtual world because the world outside of our houses just it all shut down temporarily. And I think for a lot of us, it was some of the hardest times we've had because we were faced with ourselves and having that kind of like isolation and solitude is really is can be really damaging, especially to younger people. But at the same time, I do think that, once COVID ended, that was a huge like wake up call for me. Um, to be like, oh, I need to put myself out there and I need to put down social media and experience the real world. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that social media isn't the real world, but it's only a very, very small part of it.
yeah.
And even the world that we exist in is a very small part of the world as a whole. And I think that once you're in a hole that you've dug for yourself, where you're just constantly on social media, constantly comparing yourself, and you hit rock bottom, and the suffering is really bad, which did happen during COVID. That is also the best time to climb out and the best time to reach your best potential and to
Mm,
grow. And I
mm,
think that with every painful experience,
mm,
it is also an opportunity to have the most beautiful realizations and growth that one
mm.
can have.
Yeah, well said, my friend. Well said. And I suppose if there's younger people listening, you're in your 20s. I won't give away the age, but you're in your 20s and you've done a lot of self-development and work, obviously. It's very evident. What advice would you give to a 15-year-old girl using social media?
For parents, I would definitely say that it is so much easier than you think to access content that you wouldn't want a child to see, and it could really damage them in the long run. So you should definitely look into how to properly protect your kids from the bad things on the internet, but at the same time, letting them have some freedom so
Mm,
that you could build a mutual trust and to show your kids that you do respect them. And I think for a young child or teenager who's
mhm,
using social media and the internet, I would say that use it to connect with people and not to distance yourself. And
mm.
it is a broad statement, but I think that it's more important to find the things that we have in common with one another. And I think social media can be a great way to connect with people, especially people that you'd never connect with in person, and just
Yeah.
understand that we're so much more similar than we are different, and that some people do have like really great lives, but we are also able to make our lives really beautiful and great.
Mm.
And that comes from within, and it's not from the external. So it's important to enjoy social media and connect and all of that. But at the end of the day, true like freedom and happiness lies within ourselves.
Amen, sister. And just to kind of wrap this up, You know, what I hear you saying is parents beware, be mindful, have limitations, have restrictions on your phone. And I think one of the most important pieces that I try to encourage parents is modeling healthy social media habits. And it's not just social media, technological habits. And I'm guilty of it as I raised my children and built a business. You know, I was on my phone a lot. And I wish I wasn't as much. And my kids will say that now. And so hindsight always is 2020. So we want to give as much data and information as these iPhones have really taken over our lives to say, no, what I hear you saying is I'm in control. I can empower this. But a 12 or 15-year-old isn't going to know that unless they see it modeled for them. So thank you so much, Nami, for making time for
Thank
us
you.
today. I'm
Thank you
so
so much.
appreciative.